Hi, this is James Gordon October Library here with a book review. Today's book I'll be talking about today, The Dead Zone by Stephen King. This is from Viking Press, and this was published in 1979. This was a average Stephen King book. I ended up liking it. I decided to pull this out because I have a bunch of Stephen King books that I need to read through as I need to make room on my shelf. So I pulled a couple of Stephen King books out and decided to read this one, and I ended up not liking it. While I will say the idea of a person with the power to see into people's futures and stuff and can find hidden memories that they don't even know about and stuff, I thought was really interesting. But um, yeah, the rest of the book I just kind of didn't really enjoy. I found it kind of like a bit slow and dull at times, and there was some really cringy dialogue that I didn't like reading in this book. There were a few parts that I did like, but overall, this is just wasn't a book that I could see myself picking up and reading again. It was okay. Like, I thought if I had to pick between this and Firestarter, I would pick this, but yeah, not one of my top favorite books by King. During my review, I will explain the many issues and problems I had with this novel. Alright, onto the book review. Plot. On Halloween night of 1970, high school teacher Johnny Smith is taking Sarah out for a date to the local carnival in their hometown, Cleves Mills, Maine. Dubbed Frankenstein for his tall height, but is a kind, friendly man who is strongly against the current president, Nixon, and dislikes the whole Vietnam War and how they are drafting students to fight a pointless war. Sarah arrives to pick Johnny up in his apartment and drive to the carnival. They make small talk, but the two really like each other. But Johnny is unsure if his parents will get along with Sarah's parents since Johnny's mother is religious. After eating and having a few beers, then riding a Ferris wheel and kissing at the top, Sarah wants to go home, but they pass a wheel of fortune with a man asking him if he feels lucky. Johnny decides to try his luck, and to his amazement, he wins. The man asks if he would like to try again. Sarah tells him to do it. Johnny wins several more times, which causes a crowd to form watching them. Johnny decides to bet it all and wins $500. However, their fun night is over when Sarah is sick, forcing them to end their date short. Johnny calls for a cab back home. During the ride back home, Johnny and the cab driver are talking about what's wrong with kids these days, along with politics, when suddenly two muscle cars are drag racing in front of them. The cab driver tries to avoid the car driving on the wrong side of the road, but crashes head-on, killing the cab driver along with the driver of a Mustang and his passenger. But Johnny survives, however, he's in a coma. At 2 in the morning, Herb and Vera Smith are awoken in bed by the phone. Herb answers it while waiting on the line. His wife, Vera, keeps asking who is calling at this hour. Then Herb is told the terrible news that his son's been in a car accident. Vera has a mental breakdown and begins rallying on God and the Bible, with Herb trying to calm her down. He is told what hospital Johnny is at. While Herb goes to get himself ready, Vera prays for her son. Sarah is called a few hours later and is horrified about hearing the terrible news about Johnny, causing her to faint and drop the phone. Sarah arrives at the hospital and finds the Smiths in the waiting room. She tries speaking with them, while Herb is more friendly. However, Vera keeps rallying on about God and what she thinks, with Herb telling her to be quiet. They are called to speak with the doctor. He reveals the head injuries Johnny has suffered, as his chances of making a recovery are slim. Sarah is unsure if Johnny will survive or not, but Vera believes that God has spared him. From 1979 to 1974, Johnny slowly begins to heal. He has a scar above his right eye, and his brown hair changes to white. However, he hasn't awoken from his coma, which causes Vera to lose touch with reality and becomes more devoted into her belief of God, causing tension between her and Verb, leading to an argument over selling their farmland. Sarah visits Johnny at the hospital, hoping he'll awake from his coma, but begins to lose doubt, causing her to be depressed and cry in her apartment. Sarah then begins dating Walt Bracknell, a law student. The two hit it off well, and by 1974 she gives birth to her first child on Halloween, but still can't stop thinking about Johnny. On May 17, 1975, Johnny awakens from his coma. He is told he has been sleeping for 5 years. He is shocked to learn he is now 27 years old. His parents are told the good news and go to visit him. They are happy he has recovered, but Vera keeps going on and on about it's God's plan, he must fulfill it, which Herb tells her to stop. After Vera leaves the room, Herb tells Johnny the bad news that his girlfriend Sarah has married a lawyer and has had a child. This upsets Johnny, who wants Sarah to know he has made a recovery. Herb will send her a letter. While in therapy with Dr. Sam Wyzek, trying to help Johnny recover and remind him things from his past, suddenly he demands to see Wyzek's wallet as he has a picture of his mother. Shocked by this, Dr. Wyzek gives him his wallet with Johnny taking out the photo of his mother. Johnny closes his eyes and sees the horror of the Nazi invasion of Poland in 1939, with dead bodies being taken in trucks while German soldiers attacked citizens. Johnny tells Dr. Wiesen that his mother isn't dead, as she was knocked out into a nearby house and suffered amnesia and traveled to Switzerland and remarried. She now has 4 children and is currently living in California. The nurses and doctors are shocked and don't know what to think of it. Dr. Wyzek orders everyone to keep quiet about it. After another visit from his parents updating him on the current events happening around the world and politics, Dr. Wyzek comes to speak with Johnny, telling him he found where his mother is living, but at the moment she spoke, he hung up, unable to speak as he was in shock. Dr. Wyzek believes that Johnny has psychic powers. Johnny urges Dr. Wyzek to speak to his mother, that she must know he's still alive. Dr. Wyzek replies he'll think it over and leaves Johnny alone. Over the course of several months, Johnny undergoes a few surgeries and slowly recovers and begins to walk again. However, he is worried about the hospital bill, as he nor his parents can't afford to pay it. And his mother, Vera, is getting worse, with her beliefs in God becoming so bad her and Verb don't talk to each other that much and argue a lot. Even Johnny is becoming tired of his mother's beliefs, causing friction between the two. And she hasn't been taking her meds. Sarah comes to visit Johnny while she's happy to see him getting better and still acts the same old self. However, she confesses about marrying another man and is now raising a son named Dennis. Johnny is happy for her, however Sarah still has guilt of abandoning him. While Johnny is in the middle of lifting himself with a nurse, he collapses from pain as the nurse goes to help him up when suddenly Johnny senses her house is on fire as she left the burner on. The nurse doesn't believe him, forcing himself up and walking with a bad limp to the nearest payphone. He demands to know what her address is, and when she tells him, Johnny tells the operator where the fire is and hangs up. Johnny turns to the nurse and reveals who her neighbor is. Shocked, she calls her neighbor and confirms her house was in fact on fire. This causes reporters to want to interview Johnny, which he hesitates about. Dr. Wyzek tells Johnny they won't leave, but if he refuses to interview, it will cause rumors to be spread about him. Johnny goes to do a short interview with many of the reporters skeptical until one reporter wants a demonstration. Johnny takes his hand and reveals his sister died of a drug overdose, which has depressed him. The reporter is shocked and punches him in the face, causing an uproar. Later that day, Johnny is called by his father, telling him his mother has suffered a stroke. Dr. Wyzek takes Johnny to see his mother. Herb is waiting for him as they go to see Vera. She tells Johnny she must aid God in a holy mission to help people. He promises he'll do it. 5 minutes later, she dies. Johnny goes to live with his father, hoping the reporters will leave him alone. However, he is harassed by dozens of letters asking for his help or hate mail. Then an editor for a tabloid appears at his father's house and tries to bribe him to come up with fake stories to sell for money. Johnny angrily tells him off and hopes the harassment will end as he plans to go back into teaching English. However, the reporters won't leave him alone, and the hate mail gets so bad he is let go by the school. Angered and wishing he didn't have this power, Johnny lays low for a while before finding a job as a tutor in Ridgeway, New Hampshire in '76. He is paid well and is allowed to stay at a very nice house while helping a teenage boy. This money will help pay off those hospital bills. After getting a nice bonus from the father, Johnny sees a news clip showing a upcoming candidate for a election, Greg Stilson. Watching his speech and the changes he wants to make, along with his strange personality, Johnny dislikes him, while the father believes he might have a chance of winning a seat for the Republican Party. Johnny is invited to join a rally of Greg against his wishes. While there, he sees more signs that something isn't right with Greg. He has bikers as his personal bodyguards carrying saw-off pool sticks and other makeshift weapons. Johnny is even more disgusted by people cheering him, finding his image fascism. When Greg appears along with a marching band, Johnny doesn't want to shake his hand, but is pushed towards the front by the crowd, and Greg reaches for his hand. The moment Johnny touches it, he feels the most darkest and evilest person ever. He sees Greg several years older and is now president and is in the middle of a nuclear war along with the other horrors he has caused. Johnny is unable to let go and is knocked out by Greg's biker bodyguards. Later in 77, Greg wins a seat at the House of Representatives. After this event, Johnny fears if no action is taken against Greg, he will cause World War III. Then he learns he has a brain tumor and isn't going to live much longer. Knowing he has the power to see the future, Johnny plans to assassinate Greg Stilson and prevent him from becoming president. It's a race against time, with Johnny's health getting worse, as if he fails, the whole world and everyone he knows is doomed. The Dead Zone was an average thriller, despite having an interesting concept of a person with the power to see into people's futures, past, or gain information from touching objects, and had some really dark and brutal moments, but for the most part I did enjoy it. The pacing could be slow and dull at times with some cringy dialogue, and hated how tame the sex scene was with the typical made love moment, as I always find these scenes so lazily done and trying to keep it somewhat PG. I also didn't like how King threw in a subplot of the Castle Rock slasher early into the story, as I would have rather added this later. And the scene when Johnny touches Greg's hand and sees his dark future, I felt could have been done a lot better. While Johnny is a decent character, but felt he was being too soft when he learns Sarah has married and has a child, stating he's happy for her, but is later jealous about it. The other characters were either alright or didn't care for them. I especially hated Greg Stilson, an evil, cruel man hell-bent on world power and domination, and will steal, beat, and murder anyone to become an unstoppable madman. The finale took a while to get going, as I wish Kane would just get straight to it, then adding unnecessary backstory through letters as it just dragged it on further. I was also annoyed that Johnny was being followed most of the novel by reporters who don't believe his psychic powers, yet they follow him like they got nothing better to do. Overall, I didn't like The Dead Zone. While it is somewhat decent over Firestarter, but it isn't a King novel I would return to again. Some might like it more than I did, but as they all say, we can't like everything. Up to you if you want to check out this late 70s thriller. Alright, that's for the review today. I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, I didn't like The Dead Zone. While I thought the idea of a person who has psychic powers and has the ability to see into people's futures, past, and can gain information from touching objects, I thought was really interesting, but the story I just found kind of dull and boring at parts. There was some, as I said, there was cringy dialogue I didn't like, and there was a lot of filler that I felt that wasn't necessary, that just really dragged on the story and just kind of made it like a slow chore to get through at times. While I thought the beginning the beginning of the book was really interesting. Johnny's going on a date with Sarah, and they go to the carnival, have a good time, and then the Wheel of Fortune moment where he gets really lucky and he wins a lot of money, and then the accident scene I thought was really brutal. I really enjoyed the beginning part of the book, but I thought after the part where Johnny's in a coma, the novel would just skip to when he wakens, and then he's told that now the world is kind of different after being knocked out for 5 years. But the novel follows the changes that happen during the course of the book, and I just kind of felt this would have been better if King just jumped forward to when Johnny awakens, because then it could surprise the reader of the changes that happen. He basically explains the changes that happened from 1970 all the way to 74, and I thought, reveal the changes that happened when Johnny awakens instead of showing it. There were some other scenes that I really didn't like. I didn't like how Kane added in the subplot very early of the Castle Rock slasher. He just like froze in like one scene of this killer, and then he isn't brought up until later on, which I just felt, again, I wish King didn't show this scene early, like have it revealed later on in the novel. And as a matter of fact, during my review, I didn't touch upon the subplot because I felt that we'd given away too much in the novel, so I decided not to talk about that during my review. But I will say, the Castle Rock slasher is a lot more brutal in the novel than in the 84 film of the same name, as they kind of tone that down a bit. In the book, this guy's a straight up like child murderer. Well, he does kill some like adult women, but mostly young girls this guy kills in the book. In the film, they changed it to where he kills like older women. So that was like what. So I will say that this novel is definitely a lot more darker and brutal than it is in the film. But the other thing I really didn't like with the novel was there's parts where Kane has all this like letters that Johnny writes, and then gets like, um, hate mail sent from the reporters, and people think it's a hoax. And I thought to myself, King, we don't need this. We don't need to actually see what these people are saying to him. You could just describe it. That Johnny gets a bunch of hate mail and he basically crumbles it up and throws it in the garbage. That's all you need to do. You don't need to show us what these people are saying to him. It just started to really drag on the story, and then towards the end, it's just a lot of letters from Johnny explaining what he's doing and stuff. And I you're dragging on the story. Please cut this out. So yeah, that was the one thing that was like the one issue I really had with this book, was just adding this like unnecessarily letters to the book that just dragged on the story. And as I said, there's some cringy dialogue that I didn't like reading in the beginning of the novel. When Johnny tells Sarah he's got $8 for them to spend at the carnival, her response is, "Oh my God." And I just cringed at that dialogue. I thought, King, did you really have to write it like that? Really? And then, of course, it has the other thing that I really hate in reading, especially in these older books, where when the characters have sex, but the author doesn't put that, they put the typical made love, and I'm like, oh, I hate when they do that. Just say they had sex or describe it. But no, he puts that they made love scene, and I absolutely just roll my eyes every time I read that cringy dialogue. And then, of course, there's some other parts in the book where characters say a bunch of, like, weird things. I'm like, what the hell are these people are saying? And another part I felt that could have been done better is when Johnny sees into Greg Stillson's, like, future. King kind of describes him as, like an old man, and he's, like, gone insane, and he's, like, causing this nuclear war, but he doesn't really describe it in a good way, and he's, like, rallying on about some nonsense that is hard to understand. He's just, like, firing nuclear warheads to different countries, and I was like, this could have been done better in the book, in my opinion. And a couple other parts I felt could have been done better as well. As for the characters, like Johnny is like a decent character. He's like, everyday guy. And when he gets these powers, he doesn't know what to make of it, and he kind of dislikes this ability because it causes him to be lonely, depressed, and he has to hide from people because this is the other thing I really didn't like with the novel. Why are these reporters following him? This is the one part I didn't understand. These reporters think that he's a fake, he doesn't really have these powers. It's like all like fake. Yet they still follow him whenever he appears. I'm like, why are these people following him? Like, do these people have anything better to do with their time? And it's just kind of annoying because there's several parts of the book where they just follow him. And it's like, reporters just get the hell? Like, I just wish these reporters would just get lost. Like, it was just getting annoying just reading the parts where they're following him, and then Kane, of course, has to add what they're thinking about, like, in every single page. Like, Kane, we don't need to know every thought these characters have. Just say, we get the idea. We get the idea that they think it's a hoax. We don't need to constantly see it every time. I just kind of felt the reporters following him was just getting annoying. I just kind of wish he cut that out entirely. Yeah, so Johnny was like an alright character. There wasn't really any other characters I really cared for in this book. Like, Herb, I guess, is a somewhat more likable character. Like, he's just a father who just wants to look after his son. Vera got on my nerves a lot. She's just very annoying, and there's times in the book I was like, Vera, shut up. Like, she just really was starting to get on my nerves. The Sarah character was, she was okay, but I kind of was, like, there's she still cares for Johnny, but she still has the guilt of abandoning him, and this is a part in the book I felt where Johnny was being a little too soft, because I was thinking to myself, if I was involved in an accident, woke up from a coma, and then discovered that someone I loved had abandoned me and went on to, be with someone else, I would be very angry and not happy with this person. Like, I just felt like Johnny was being a little too nice to me. He should like have some anger about being abandoned by Sarah, and he's later jealous of this, and he feels that Sarah and him should have been married, and that should have been their child, not Walt's child and stuff. And I just felt like it was kind of like conflicting. Like, on one hand he's happy for her, and the other he isn't. So I just kind of wish that he was. To me, he should be a bit more like angry that he's been abandoned by Sarah. And as for yeah, and there's some other characters that I either were like okay or didn't care for, but I absolutely despise Greg Stillstone. He's an absolute twisted individual. He's insane. He is just really gets off like beating people, extorting them for money, and he also gets has a kick for killing dogs. Sick bastard. I really hated this. I really hated this character, and the more it reveals like how twisty he is, I just really wanted to see what this character was coming to him. Because I just really hated this character. The finale was okay, but as it says, it takes a while to get going, and of course there's like I said, the letters that King adds. I just wish King would have cut that out and just get straight to the finale. I'm not gonna reveal the ending, but I thought it was decent. I felt it could have been a little better. There is of course the very well known movie that's based on the book of the same name, directed by David Cronenberg and starring Christopher Walken. It's a okay movie. Like there's some things that they changed around from the book to the film, and I felt there were some things they did improve from the book. However, the novel is a lot more darker than the novel is. Like especially with the Castle Rock slasher, Greg Stillson having like bikers as like bodyguards and stuff, and them carrying like sawed-off pool sticks and other makeshift weapons they use on people that get too close to him. As the film, they kind of just changed this to just regular bodyguards and stuff. Now, I will say the film does improve, like, not revealing the changes that happened when Johnny was in his coma. Like, the film cuts to him waking up from his coma, and then it reveals the changes that happened and stuff. And then, of course, the Castle Rock slasher, and then Greg Stillson's characters, they don't appear until later on in the film, and it's which I thought was much better than the book, where it kind of like was like following following these like characters and revealing to the reader what they are doing as the film. It kind of like it surprises the reader of these characters, which I kind of felt was better. So it's up to you if you want to read this novel or not. Some might like it more than I did. As I said, it's not a bad like novel. It's not one of the worst novels I read by Stephen King, but it's just one I wouldn't like go to pick up and read again. As I said earlier in my video, I got a bunch of his books I got to read through because I need to seriously make room on my shelves, as I got a lot of books and I got to start reading through more of like the well-known authors. That way I can make room on my shelves for more books in the future. Alright, that's for the video today. Hope you enjoyed. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to October Library, the YouTube channel where I post book reviews, book hauls, and artificial related content. Until then, I'll catch you later.